welcome to the show, my so-called fabulous. I'm Tiffany. Welcome, everyone. And I am telling you one thing. I have talked to you about this, and I've talked to you about this, and we have shared and shared. Girls are not for sale. They're just not. No one is for sale. But today we're talking about women, young girls, and everyone has a girl in their life. And if I bring you nothing this season, I'm bringing you this because I have grandchildren, I have a daughter, I have nieces, and I have nephews, and everyone's affected by this. Welcome to the show again, The Net and The Worthy Co. Founder Melissa Ice, my precious friend, and Carrie Dixon, a survivor, y'all. I'm so proud of Carrie for coming today and sharing her information in her incredible resume of resilience. So welcome to the show, both of you fabulous people.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
absolutely.
Happy to be back.
Melissa, you were on number 138. So
Believe it.
a couple of years ago. I can't either, but thank you so much for coming back. And you know, you and I are doing an event here in a couple of weeks, and
I'll be there too.
And you'll be there, Carrie.
Yeah.
And I'm just a few years ago, I don't know what year it was. I can't remember. It escapes me. But I actually talked about this when I first went to the luncheon for the Net here in Fort Worth, Texas. And it forever changed my heart. And I'm a philanthropist for sure, but it changed my heart into listening to these women and being so ignorant to the fact that this is not happening right here in Fort Worth, Texas. And I guarantee you, wherever you're listening today, it's happening. So I listened to you that day. It was several years ago. And the woman, Rachel, tell her story. And her story, people want to think, Carrie, you're going to explain this. You have to be impoverished. You're impoverished. You are not a... it has no definition of who could be a victim of sex trafficking.
Exactly.
So, everyone, tell me about the Net, you two. So, Melissa, share us a little bit. And I want you to go back to episode 138 and take a listen to Melissa and I. But Melissa, give us a synopsis for those of us that do not know about the Net.
Yeah, so the Net, we're an anti-trafficking organization. We're located in Fort Worth, Texas, and we have been serving survivors of trafficking since 2012. So it's been well over a decade, and to date, we've served over 1,800 women and girls. And basically what we want to do is just provide them with support and recovery because we believe that everyone's worthy of the chance to rebuild their lives. And sometimes all it takes is a community that's willing to wrap their arms around you and put a few tools in your tool belt and help you achieve all the goals that we believe they were designed to achieve, and that their past doesn't have to define their future. And so that's the idea behind the Net, is that we want to be a safety net for women who need that. And then we started the Worthy Co. in 2018, and that was just because we were seeing a need that as our women were graduating from our program and trying to get jobs, there's just a lot of barriers, which Carrie knows a lot about that.
All too well.
All too well. Yes, exactly. And obviously, with having a program, that's also a business. We're making products and we're selling products, and we have a retail store and an e-commerce store, which is fun and fabulous, I would say.
It is.
We have candles and jewelry and all the cutesy fun things and all the pops of pink that my little heart could want. But well beyond that is that we are helping women have a soft place to land in this season of life where they're trying to figure out what it looks like to rebuild their life, to reintegrate in society, to reunite with their children, and to really feel like they have worth and value and to flourish. And so part of that is, yes, we provide them with a job, but we also try to provide them with lots of other little amenities and opportunity to provide care and support so that they can take advantage of not just the job opportunity, but of life.
Life and to thrive in life. And Carrie, you were talking about this before the show and how, to be fair, and you're going to hit so many points of your journey and, of course, working with women. So, Carrie, you actually now work with the Net. You are an employee of the Net, correct?
Full-time employee.
Full-time.
I started, my involvement with the Net started as a participant in 2015. I, at that point, had not very much hope. I was involved in the criminal justice system and didn't have a very bright outlook. But the net came along and really taught me what I was worth. Eventually, I started working part-time. That grew to full-time. And now I have the pleasure of being able to give back to other ladies like myself.
And that's amazing.
It
and
is.
I really would love for you, if you're comfortable, sharing your journey. You mentioned 2015, which was 10 years ago,
Yes.
if my math is correct. So that was quite a while ago. But your resume now, you finished school, college, and your master's degree. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
right? Congratulations.
Yes.
Since 2018, I've accomplished a bachelor's in legal studies and a master's in criminal justice with a life coaching certificate, which helped me tremendously in my job.
Carrie, in 2015, if I would have asked you or told you that you would have 2 degrees under your belt in 2025, what would your reaction to be?
No way. There's no way I would have believed it. Yeah. Not only about the degrees, but just the things I get to do and experience in my life now. I get to get the word out. I go on podcasts like this. I have speaking engagements. Had the opportunity to go to our local community college a couple of weeks ago and sit in a meeting where they're talking of implementing a program at the school to help pave the way for survivors to have easier access to education. Because like when I was first getting out of the trafficking world and trying to get my education, I was going to school during the week and turning myself into jail on the weekends because of a sanction for the criminal justice involvement I was in. So things like that are things that little barriers that people don't think about when we're trying to get these girls out of the trafficking experience. Mm-hmm. There is a multitude of internal and external barriers that they face. And that's what we at the Net, we try to nip away at each one of those barriers a little bit at a time.
Right. You have told me, and Melissa shared with me several years ago, that less than 1% are, if I leave the studio today and go to my parking garage, which we should all be careful, obviously, but less than 1% are people that are just abducted or kidnapped from a random stranger.
Right.
And that, we didn't finish this conversation earlier. My daughter's a true crime, what is it called?
Podcaster.
Yes. Consumer. I am too.
I
Yes.
cannot. I'm not.
Me too. I love it.
Same.
I'm scared of my own shadow. But she's so aware. She's so aware. But you were telling me that 1% of if I go out, someone of kidnapping me versus someone that you actually know.
Right.
So explain to me that, and can you share your journey with what has happened?
So first I want to say, if we're brutally honest about it, if you leave this podcast today and you get kidnapped, that kidnapper's goal is probably not trafficking. It's probably something more final.
Okay.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
What I have seen in my personal experience and what I've seen, it's typically someone you know, a family member, a friend, a love interest, something, and they target a sense of vulnerability. So just to be real, we as human beings struggle with our self-worth. It's just a thing everybody does. We as women struggle probably 10 times worse because our self-worth is constantly being valued by other people, especially in this online world we're in now. And so traffickers target that. They go for the people that have a sense of low self-worth, and they pretend to offer them that love or that value or whatever it is that they're looking for. And they may get it for a little while. The girl may get it for a little while, but eventually it turns into something that's very traumatic and they never expected.
And so that is typically their family, a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. And by the time it gets to the trauma that we know sex trafficking is, it's usually too late for the girl to get out, even if she wants to, which we found statistics show 86% of women do want out of the life. They just don't know how to get out.
They don't know how to get out. Mm-hmm. So how do we find these women that are being trafficked? How do we find these women that need help? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So first we have to think about this. So as much as we have the misconception of what trafficking is, the ladies themselves also have that same misconception. So a lot of people confuse trafficking and prostitution, and they think that they're different things, and that prostitution is a choice. You know, women who engage in prostitution or commercial sex, people tend to think that they choose that, but that's not true. Prostitution is a form of trafficking. Most of those women got there either at a very young age, under the age of 15, or through some form of force, fraud, or coercion, which is the national definition of trafficking. And so for those women, they often don't even know that they need out of it, because just like us, they believe that that's a choice, that that's a life that they chose, and that the things that happen to them are because they made those choices. So getting them out of that is a struggle from the very beginning. And then add on to that the internal and external barriers that come along with it. Like, once you get them out of that life, we are telling them, like, you're worth more than being bought and sold. You're worthy of the life that God says, you know, you deserve, all these things. But then they go out into the workforce and they try to get a job. And because they either lack education, they have criminal justice involvement, or they've got a huge gap in their employment because they've been in commercial sex for the last 5 years, they can't get a job making more than minimum wage, or a job that they have to stand on their feet 10 hours a day for $15 an hour. That's not a livable wage. Or when they go out to try to get a place to live, they have to live in subpar neighborhoods because, you know, they're constantly being told, well, we don't want your kind in our neighborhood. We're not going to rent to felons. We're not going to rent to this. You have to live in this certain area and work in this certain area. And so we're trying to tell them that they're worth all these things. But at the same time, society is telling them basically that they're not. Because how can I believe that I'm worth all these good things when I have to live in an apartment with no hot water?
Yeah. And when you mention felons, is this a felony? Some women have felony charges.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
I would say the majority of the women that we serve.
Explain that, please.
Okay. So traditionally, which I'll get to this in a minute, but kudos to Texas, but traditionally, selling sex, like the woman, prostitution, starts off as a misdemeanor. The first time as a misdemeanor, second time as a misdemeanor, third time felony. Traditionally, the men who are buying it face no charges. Zero charges. So two people engaged in the same commercial sex act, woman gets arrested, man goes home. Now,
why? Because men are.
That's a question for legislature. I don't.
Yes, and it's changed.
It
thank
has
goodness.
changed recently.
Yes, in 2021 there was a bill passed, and that has been huge because now they've made sex buying a first-time sex buying a felony offense.
Yes,
but it took way too long.
too long.
So for decades, the women that we serve have been sort of racking up all these charges and in and out of jail. Meanwhile, a lot of the buyers who were also there, or the traffickers who were also facilitating,
behind the scenes, they face no charges.
It's been a lot harder for law enforcement to enforce all the punishment, and it's just been really difficult because, you know, the DA's office, if you're people who are prosecuting criminals, you have to have evidence and you have to have charges that you can actually bring against them. And so that's been sort of an uphill battle, but we're super happy and excited. And for sure, in the state of Texas, that's kind of leading the way. And some other states have caught on as well. But now that has drastically changed, which has been really, really good for equaling out the playing field.
Also, in addition to specific prostitution charges that the women face, there are other related charges, I would say. So we found that drug addiction tends to go hand in hand with this because sometimes they're given drugs to help cope with the trauma that causes an addiction issue. So we see drug charges. A lot of times we see forced criminal activity, or they're given the option between, I say given, but they have the option between like stealing things and using that as a way to make money, or selling themselves. And so a lot of times they'll choose to engage in other criminal activity to avoid having to participate in the commercial sex industry.
Oh my gosh. What is the youngest, because I'm really trying to resonate with my listeners here, our listeners. What is the youngest that you've seen in your organization that has experienced trafficking?
The youngest that I can think of right off the top of my head, we had a young lady that is a really good friend of mine. We became involved in the net around the same time. She was 9 years old, and she was sold,
By family.
traded by her mother to a boyfriend.
What in the world? I mean,
We had another young lady who was 12. She left her home after an argument, petty argument. Like a lot of preteens have that. Yeah. And got picked up by a 40-something-year-old man at the store who took care of her for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, he put her out on the corner and told her, "You're going to make that money back that I spent on you over these last 2 weeks."
Oh, my stars. It reminds me of Rachel's story that we talked about when, just going to college and just immediately the wrong person, which scares me so much, and we can teach our children and make them aware until, and just, it's baffling to me in the ages. And where do you find also in the organization that this is continuous? If that mother sold her child, was there just, this is continuation? They couldn't stop the cycle of sex trafficking or selling.
Yes, we do see that because it's more a mindset thing than it is like the activities. So until we break that mindset and really convince these women that they are worth more than being bought and sold, it's going to continue, because then they're going to transfer that mindset to their children, which is why it's so important what we do with the Worthy Co. and the net, because we are teaching these women their worth, who are now passing it on to we have several young ladies who have daughters, and they bring their daughters to our events and to our classes. And so from a very young age, we are teaching these young girls that they are worth all these things, and they get to see their moms, going to these classes and making these changes and getting education and living a dignified life. And so it is breaking the cycle now.
It is breaking.
Well, and it's really cool. I was thinking of the little boy who stood up at the Christmas party. And what did he say? He's like, "You saved my mom's life."
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
He's
How
about,
old is he?
He's about 9 years old, and his mom had been in and out of trafficking. He's lived with family members for the majority of his life. And he stood up at our Christmas party last year and said that he just wants to he wants to give God the glory, because that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
We do a give God the glory every event. And he said he wanted to give God the glory for giving his mom a second chance and bringing her back home to him.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. It's that generational piece. Yeah.
Out of the mouths of babes. My goodness, that is amazing. And, we've talked about this a lot, how incredibly normal this is in Fort Worth.
Yes.
I mean, Melissa, when you said that to me and I heard this, I was like, not in our little town. No, right? It's just prevalent, correct?
Yes. Well, and I think too, just having to recognize that, okay, we live in Texas. That's where we are. And Texas is ranked second in reported cases of human trafficking behind California in the country. So our state alone, it's super prevalent. And then there's an average of 313,000 victims of trafficking in the state of Texas and at any given time. And so, parse that down to Fort Worth. And then we also know that in the U.S., 1 in 10 men will buy sex annually. And so translated to Fort Worth, that's 40,000 men here in our community. The good news is that 9 out of 10 don't. So that's good.
That's great.
So there's a whole lot that don't.
10 out of 10 though.
Yeah.
Right.
But for the ones that do, unfortunately, they're the ones that are creating the market for this. They're sort of unintentionally or intentionally, depending on where they're at and their awareness, are perpetuating this idea, because traffickers wouldn't have anybody to sell if there wasn't anyone to sell them to.
Yeah.
And it's sort of that triangle. And I think what's interesting about trafficking is that in the news headlines, you hear about the traffickers. You're like, oh, we took the bad guy down, and then we rescued 13 girls out of the hotel room. Those kind of clickbait headlines, which are true stories. But I've always, whenever I read those stories, I always notice, I'm like, and you know what wasn't talked about? The men who were purchasing those girls. Why would a trafficker even have a dozen or so girls in his care, quote unquote, if there wasn't people on a regular basis who were willing to buy them. And so that's just why at the net too, we've chosen to really tackle that part of the issue as well, is because we want to sort of tackle it from every angle, in the goal that there's no need for the net. We don't exist anymore because we're tackling it from every side.
Put yourself out of business.
Yeah, that's going to put us out of business. We can go into retirement.
Because I know y'all will start something else for sure. Oh, yeah. There's always a problem for sure. Do you find psychologically, when you see and meet these women, is it difficult for them to have enough worth to remove themselves from these situations? Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
It's a comfort zone. Is that?
Unfortunately, it is.
Like survival mode.
It becomes what they know. They've been convinced and have convinced themselves that this is what they deserve. I can't tell you how many times on a daily basis I get calls from girls scared to put in a job application. Just had a young lady recently who was living in an apartment with holes in the floor. Like you could see the ground through her floor. And it took weeks of talking to her to convince her to even step out and put in an application for another apartment complex, because she did not believe that she deserved more than that. Oh. She thought that that was the only place she could afford and she could deserve to live. We just got her moved into her new place, and she tells me every day now how much she loves it, how much more peaceful it is. She has carpet. It's amazing. But the daily struggle it was of her, she almost didn't apply for it. Mm-hmm. She almost gave up halfway through the application process multiple times, because she, to her core, just did not believe that she deserved anything different. I had to constantly reassure her.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. I get that all the time.
Gosh, in your degree, your criminal justice, but there had to be a lot of psychology in your degree, because I mean, to psychologically, and of course, being a survivor, you understand, but psychologically, to help these women, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being truly vulnerable, like I still struggle sometimes with my own self-worth. If I wasn't surrounded by the people I'm surrounded with and work for the people that I work for, I don't know that I would be able to convince myself every day that I'm worth the life that I currently live. I have to constantly remind myself that I deserve all these things that I'm doing, the trips that I'm going on, the, wonderful things that I get to experience. And it's because I'm able to work for a place that treats me like a whole human being, understands my story, knows my story, and values me for the person I am, regardless of my story.
And once again, I back you up 10 years. You would have never thought that.
Never thought this.
Did you know that there were organizations out there like this?
Had no idea.
Could you dream this?
Not in a million years.
Not yet.
I'm glad Melissa did, but.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And we've taken it to the next level in the last 5 years. So when I was first involved, we had one class a week, and we had advocacy and we had social events. Now we have 7 or 8 classes a week, including GED, financial literacy. We have Rachel Thomas's curriculum. We have several recovery groups. We have several classes geared towards recovering from the trauma. Those combat the internal battles. And then we offer other resources like banking. We have a relationship with a bank. I don't know if I can mention it or not, but we have a relationship with a bank where they offer 3 months free banking for our ladies that we take over there. We have relationships with dental offices that provide free dental work. We have eyeglasses. We can get them vision.
Wow.
And then we help with their backgrounds, sometimes getting that cleared up.
Wow.
We have career planning, resume building, all kinds of stuff.
Mock interviews, vision boards, all the things.
And then we have the Worthy Code, where they not only get something to put on their resume, but they get the soft skills that allow you to keep a job once you've got it. Like how to do those interpersonal relationships that a lot of us aren't good at, and especially us survivors aren't really good at.
And you were talking earlier, and we all know this, we're women. And we do have a disadvantage. We just do.
Yes.
But you were talking, and this makes perfect sense. Financially, having a record, which can't be good. But you have been an advocate of helping women clear their credit, and because they may have felon charges, like we were talking about, or misdemeanor charges,
or evictions or credit issues. So many people don't know this, but there was a law that was passed a couple of years ago, I think in 2021. No action was taken on this law until 2023. It's part of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. But basically, in a nutshell, it states that if there is negative information on a person's background that is related to their trafficking experience, we can request that that information be blocked from being reported by consumer reporting agencies. And for those people that don't know, consumer reporting agencies are the people that do your backgrounds when you go to apply for a job or an apartment or a credit card or a bank account, something like that. The consumer reporting agencies provide the information for the company to make the decision whether to hire you or allow you to live there. And so there's a specific set of documents that we have to provide. Like there's some credentials that we have to provide. We have to show that we are qualified to name someone to be a trafficking survivor. We're qualified to say what charges are related and what charges aren't. But we do all of that, and then we provide the documentation to the consumer reporting agencies, get the information blocked, and it has opened the doors for ladies to pursue their dreams. Because like we were talking about earlier, Tiffany, no woman wakes up and says, hey, I want to be a prostitute when I grow up. I want to sell myself. I want to be degraded every day for a little bit of money in the bank. These little girls, like all of us, had dreams when they were kids. And this new law and all the tools and skills that we provide allow them to pursue those dreams again and open up a world of possibilities that they thought was closed.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know you are so proud of that.
I love it.
I mean,
and she's a dog on a bone. If someone doesn't call her back, she is going to get on that phone and she will call you and call you. I call it hammer calling.
Yes.
She's going to hammer call you until she gets that background cleared for that.
Wow.
Yes.
What an advocate. What an advocate for so many people.
I was on my way to a speaking engagement, and I was going through a particular struggle with this one background check company that apparently didn't know the law, which is okay, they didn't know, but I had to educate them.
They do now, right?
They do now. They absolutely. So now when I call and they hear my name, they put me immediately through to the supervisor, and she takes care of it.
Yeah.
And got her
up the chain. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, what an asset that you have, Melissa, this woman that's been through this. And I know that entire staff is just so valuable to you. I mean, and you're a blessing to them, and they're a blessing to you, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I would never have thought whenever we met. And I was coming to the jail. I was super pregnant. I was meeting with this girl, Carrie, and
I was known as the one with the attitude problem.
I was like, she's a feisty one. And I
just had to channel in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right. What did you think when Melissa came to you that day?
If I'm being honest, I thought this preppy little girl has nothing to teach me.
You did?
But she did. She taught me how to be a human being, how to be a woman full of worth and value. She taught me how to be a good friend too.
Right. And you understand what you're doing when you walk into the jail system. You know exactly what these women are thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Right? I can connect with the ladies we serve. Like all of our staff can connect with them wonderfully, and we do a fabulous job, and the ladies love everyone that's on staff. But just by being myself and doing what I do, I can connect with these women in a way that can't be taught in books. Mm-hmm. Like I can talk to them about things that go unspoken, like the feelings and the anxiety and the internal thoughts that they're thinking. Like, I know, I get it. I've been there, and I am a testimony that you can get past it. You can get through it. It will go away. You just have to work hard for it.
Mm-hmm. And everyone has to work hard for everything we do, of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to go through the process, just a cliff notes on the process. You discover a person that's in the criminal justice system, okay?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What is the first step that the net takes, and how do you know about this?
Well, originally, a majority of our women, like back when I was in the program, came directly through the criminal justice system. They were referred to the net through that program that Melissa talked about earlier, the RISE program that was started here in Fort Worth. Now we get so much word of mouth. They don't all come directly from the criminal justice system. Most of them have criminal justice involvement, but the very first step is they do an intake. That's where they sit down with myself or someone else on staff, and we just learn more about their story, more about what got them here, and what specific needs they may or may not have. And then they go to classes. Then they can get into what we call our empowerment path. It's where they meet with a case manager and they set goals, and they can get financial incentives just for coming to the classes. Because at the end of the day, we're asking these women to choose between going to work and making money or coming to these classes and working on their trauma and building skills. But these don't pay the bills. So that's a tough decision for a lot of people. So we offer them financial incentives in the way of gift cards and actual
money
in the bank.
For reaching those milestones and benchmarks. So if they complete GED, we actually put money in their bank account. If they open a bank account for the first time,
we
because
put money in the bank account.
58% of women come to us having never opened a bank account. Never. And so when they're learning how to do that, we're incentivizing them financially to make those changes and to pursue those goals, which is really encouraging. And last year, we were super thankful that we gave $45,000 in incentives, financial incentives for the women in our program.
We make the initial investment in them so that they can make the investment in themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's paid off. I'm not the only success story. We've got another young lady that's gone on to get her doctorate. She's now a professor. We've got several ladies that are in school right now to get business degrees. We've got one that's going for nutrition. Several ladies are pursuing higher education. We've got mended relationships. We've got ladies that are living and working in places that they never thought they would be able to. It's amazing. I'm by far not the only success story. I'm just the most vocal one.
Thank goodness. And thank you for being here today.
Yes.
Carrie, what would you say to the women that are out there listening to this podcast today and someone that knows this is happening? What would you say to those women that are listening? And I want you to listen, girls. What would you say?
I would say that there is hope. You deserve more than what you're currently experiencing. You deserve more than being bought and sold as a commodity. Life is about more than that. There are people who are willing to accept you just as you are and help you become the person that God wants you to be.
You say that with emotion, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. You've been there.
Absolutely.
Gosh, I adore you so much.
Thank you.
Melissa. She's the best.
How can we help? What can anyone do to help Girls Are Not For Sale?
Yeah, I think so. Listening to this podcast.
Yeah. Spreading awareness.
Spreading awareness is huge, and education. And, I said this actually recently at a dinner that Carrie and I were at, is that I think there's sort of this misconception or idea that in order to enter into something that is kind of heavy, it's talking about this issue of injustice and the darkness and the trauma and all of that, trafficking. It's not the most fun. It's not the thing you bring up at dinner parties,
right?
Over a glass of wine. Yeah. So, and sort of this idea that, gosh, if you're going to enter into this super heavy,
be well equipped,
dark thing, you have to be super called and equipped and just feel like, man, that's my lane and I need to run hard and fast and make a dent in that. And I don't think that's true. I think that when I look at my own life, I'm a very unlikely candidate or spokesperson for this particular area. I think that everybody has gifts, strengths, talents, resources, and anybody can bring something to the table to say, this is not okay. This is not going to happen in my community, in my city, in my country. I want my daughters to know that this shouldn't happen to them. It shouldn't happen to their friends, and it shouldn't even happen to their neighbors. Just people that live among, that the things that we want for ourselves. Like, I want to feel safe. You're talking about walking in a parking garage. I want safety. I want opportunity. I want those things for my kids. I want it for my friends. I want it for my family. And the women and girls that we serve that did not choose this as a child and saying, this is what I want to do when I get older, but instead we would say this happened to them. They want those things too. They want safety. They want employment. They want community. They want friendship. And so in order for them to have that, I think it takes everybody looking at themselves saying, what do I have to offer? And I think this podcast is actually the most beautiful example of what anybody can do, because you don't have to, we're in downtown. If you're not from Fort Worth, we're a couple blocks over from where we meet, where I met Carrie. where we met and where we meet women every single week. And I don't think it means that you have to be willing to walk down there and waltz into the jail, and that's the starting point. I think it's looking at your own life and saying, what do I have? I have a podcast I can share with my listeners about this. And so I think everybody can play some small part. We met with the girl who did our makeup this morning. I love her. Shout out to Haley. But she has a line of eyelashes and lipsticks, and a percentage of all of her makeup products goes to the net. Wow. And that's her part. That's her part to play. And she's not necessarily meeting one-on-one with women like Carrie is and teaching classes, but she's using the things that God's put in her life and saying, what can I do to play a small part? And so I think it's twofold. One, just learning about it, listening to stories like Carrie's, listening to the people, bringing voices to the table that should be there in the first place. And then two, looking at what your own life, what your own gifts, talents, resources are, and saying, gosh, could I just do one small thing to play a part? And like for us, that's one of the reasons why we created Worthy Co. Is that I feel like we had this onslaught of people who are like, what can we do to help? And we're like, buy a candle. Just start there. Buy a candle. Buy a candle, give it to a friend, send that candle to a friend and saying, hey, that candle is for you because I love you, and we love, all women love things that smell good. Yeah. But at the same time, did you know that was hand poured by someone in my community that is living a new life, and they're no longer defined by trafficking? And every time you light it, will you just remember her and think about someone like her?
As simple as just changing the narrative. Like traditionally, a lot of people think that prostitution is a victimless crime, but it's really not. When, I know a lot of personal victims of prostitution. And so just changing that simple little narrative of it being a victimless crime to the reality of what it is.
Exactly. I love this because everyone can do their part. Definitely do their part, share their voice, or whatever the case may be, volunteer, you name it. If you haven't been to the Worthy Co., you must go. I was there a lot during the Christmas holidays. The most precious. Okay, your necklace is from there, right?
Mine too.
Yours too. Okay, if you're on YouTube, take a peek. You can see these fabulous women's necklaces. I love pink is this girl's color.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Melissa's color. But go there. It's such... And you meet the most fabulous women there. I just have to say, it's so incredible. Thank you for coming and sharing, y'all.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And it's such a pleasure meeting you. And I'm going to see you again in a few weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie. And
I believe we have a dinner planned.
Yes, exactly. And thank you, friend. You are fabulous. You're beautiful. What you do, helping poverty and people, is just... It's just amazing. And that's how I describe her. And you all know it when I say, do you know Melissa Ice? Because you should.
You are so sweet. And I feel like they're just the sum total of the supporters and champions and advocates in our lives. And obviously that's you too. And so thank you back.
You're so welcome. How can we find you?
Yes, please find us.
Please.
We are on all the socials. And if you wanted to actually shop Worthy Co., our website is worthy-co.com or theworthy.co on Instagram. You can find us there. And all of the work that we do with the net and the women and even our men's programs, we're the netfw.com. But if you are on socials, we're just the netfw. If you want to find me personally, I'm just Melissa Ice. No dashes or anything. And then I would say too, if you're like, I live far away, but how can I donate or how can I participate financially? you can go to the Net FW. We have a donate page, and I can just promise you that it's going to go directly to the work that we talked about today. We've seen 117% increase in the women that we serve from last year to this year. And so we're actively trying to meet those needs as well and just make sure that we don't have to turn anybody away, but we can offer them all the things that we've talked about on this podcast.
Well, thank you so much, you two fabulous people. I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate y'all so much. You know, we're here every single Tuesday. And why I started this podcast 5.5 years ago, I started to help. And I just hope I'm helping just a little bit by sharing this information with all of you listening today. And I say it every Tuesday, keep being fabulous.